Uma was in this kind of like a weird situation in her life when we did Pulp Fiction. She had like 2 not so great experiences on movies. I couldn't believe she didn't have more fun doing what she was doing, because I'd been waiting to do this my whole life, and I was having a blast on Pulp Fiction, all right? So as I'm waiting for her to show up, it became this thing about me that, like, it was almost as important to making a good movie as I was going to make sure Uma had a good time during this process, all right? She was going to enjoy this creative process. It's a damn shame she doesn't. And so I kind of worked 24/7 to make sure that happened.
Where's Bill? Where's Bill? Please stop hitting me. Where's Bill?
It's my favorite movie of all time. And I think that it speaks to my brain so much, dude. It was one of the first modern films I ever caught on to. You know, I was 9, but I had so much fun watching it. I never really had a filter on things I could watch. My family didn't really care about all that stuff. You know, like, they're kind of just like, play what you want. Just don't go out here slashing people up with a katana. You know what I mean?
Hi, I'm Taylor, and welcome back to the Film Nuts podcast. Okay, pop quiz. What is fun? Take your time. I'll wait. Okay, so obviously it's not a simple answer. Everyone has their own idea of what fun is, but there's this really interesting idea I'd like to share with you. We have fun when we play. A lot of times our days can feel like work, whether we're literally going to work or sitting in class or just trying to get our kids dressed to go outside. And work bogs us down. And that's why play is so important. Backed by science, play can be an effective tool for maintaining relationships. It can bring joy and vitality to our day, and it can heal resentment or disagreements. So with all that in mind, why can't we play more at work? What could happen? The soundbite you heard at the top of the episode is from none other than famed director Quentin Tarantino in a 2004 interview with Charlie Rose. And he's talking about his stylized exploitation revenge film, Kill Bill Volume 1. This movie has a lot going for it. Uma Thurman as a kick-ass assassin, comically large amounts of blood spatter, genre aesthetics bridging Eastern and Western cinema. Hell, there's even an anime sequence thrown in there for good measure. It's the perfect encapsulation of Tarantino's attitude to have as much fun as possible making movies. A sentiment shared by today's guest. Tray Biddle is a director at Argent Productions who believes the best product is one that's fun to make. I chat with Tray about shared cinematic experiences with his family, why it's important to not always be so grounded, and about where creativity comes from. Yeah, we kind of are all over the place with this. If you're anything like me, you'll notice his infectious spirit very early on in our discussion, and I hope you have fun listening. All right, so let's Kung Fu zoom right into it. Here's Tray Biddle talking about Kill Bill Volume 1 on the Film Nuts podcast. So how's it going, man?
Man, more than lovely, dude. Like, honestly, you know, my production company's been doing really well, Argent Productions.
Mm-hmm.
We're focusing kind of on like tech and finance is like kind of our huge thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's asking me like, bro, why don't you just do film? Like, film's totally your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I don't kind of want to get that mixed, you know, pleasure and business mixed up all the time. So I try to just kind of just stay low key and like I can provide my family and my people, my friends, something to do. Mm-hmm. Rather than just doing film, because that film route is pretty long route, as we know. Mm-hmm. A lot of connections involved, a lot of money involved, and I know this way with the tech and finance thing, it's more of a thing where we can have consistent work, and my people can feel good about having somewhere to go and have you know like their bills be paid. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But on the back end, I've just been editing feature films. I just finished coloring 2 shorts, Lure and Host, over at Postmortem Films. So that was a lot of fun. I had a dope time doing that. But other than that, man, it's been gravy.
That's great. Is it Did you ever find it difficult to like put up that wall in between making stuff for business and making stuff for fun?
100%. I think one of the main things was like trying to have fun, like even though you're doing business stuff, like you're doing more of the more corporate stuff is not always supposed to be fun, but you got to have some type of fun in doing it. You know what I mean? So that's why having like a really strong and dope team around is super important. Because we make fun out of anything, you know what I mean? Like we can show up to a shoot where it's like literally a sit down talking head, but we're dancing on, we're having a good time on set, man.
Yeah.
But like I think that's a huge thing right now is just trying to figure out, even for the long term, like how to transition from commercial work to just going straight into film. So that's kind of where we're at now, just trying to figure that out.
Gotcha. So when we were first talking, I think one of the films right off your head when I asked you what you wanted to talk about was Kill Bill, and that's
Absolutely.
why we're here. So why don't you tell me why you wanted to talk about Kill Bill?
It's my favorite movie of all time, and I think that it speaks to my brain so much, dude. Just because it's like it's like this revenge story of like this person who's had so much harm done to them, but they seem like a good person on the outside. You know what I mean? Of course, every main character has their own internal battles, but I really see Uma Thurman's character as like somebody that's really like she just wants to get her life together. You know what I mean? It's not her fault she's in this bad situation. You know?
Yeah.
And then one of the main reasons it spoke to me is because like I'm really in love with Asian culture and Asian history. So like when they kind of went the lady samurai route and they kind of like incorporated all these Asian things and these cool, like it's not an Asian movie by any means, we know this, but like there are definitely some things like, even towards the end where like it speaks to very Asian culture. And I spent a lot of my time just learning about Asian culture before I even got into film. You know what I mean? One of my passion projects is a samurai film. You know what I mean? It's going to be a very like cool, like very slow burn samurai film because I want people to understand how important the culture is behind it. So that's kind of why Kill Bill is one of my favorite films, is because it just has it speaks to me in the long term. You know what I mean? Like it feels good to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. So like, how did you? So putting aside just the film for a second, like how and why did you get into the study of different Asian cultures?
Mainly my older brother. My older brother Jerome, he's like 9 years older than me, but he always grew up watching like kung fu films and like these crazy Akira Kurosawa films like Ron and Ikiru, and like that's kind of like my thing. And I was too young. Like at that time, I was 6 or 7 years old watching that stuff, so I didn't really understand what was going on.
Yeah.
But I thought it looked cool on screen. You know what I mean? So when I found out that it looked so good on screen, man, and like it was so entertaining, and just the scale that Kurosawa did things, I was like, okay, so how do I find that modernly? Because we don't really make films like that anymore. We don't really make films that have this crazy war scale, at least in Asian culture anyway. But Kill Bill is a more like, it's very action based. It's got a really cool like look and cinematography to it. And it's very gritty. And that's how Kurosawa back then was doing the same thing. And even now I speak back to Kurosawa as just one of my favorite directors of all time. But Tarantino did a fantastic job just incorporating incorporating the Asian stuff into it, just very subtly though. It was still an American movie, but it had small, subtle things into it. You know what I mean? And that's what I liked. I love the katanas. I love like all the fun humor he had in the movie, because that's the way Kurosawa did things. And I was like, and my brother's a huge fan of Kurosawa, and I respect that. And there's a reason that I love Quentin Tarantino so much, because he knows how to grab culture and just take off with it, have a good time with it.
Right. So when did you first see this movie?
Oh man, I think I was like probably about 9 or 10.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm only 26 now, so it's like, like most people are like, man, you didn't see that. But yeah, I seen it when I was 9 or 10. And, I never really had a filter on things I could watch. My family didn't really care about all that stuff. Same thing with video games. Like they're kind of just like, play what you want. Just don't go out here slashing people up with a katana. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Know the difference.
Right. So like, I had a good time. I was able to watch films like Kill Bill. And I was 9, but I had so much fun watching it. You know what I mean? And I think that's like, even to this day, I still say it's the best film of all time. And for me, because I just think that it just spoke so much to my childhood and what I was raised on. And then I immediately shifted from watching Asian movies with my brother to watching like how Tarantino broke this down and made it more of like this cool Lady Samurai-esque type of thing. And I was like, it was one of the first modern films I ever caught on to. Besides The Matrix, obviously. I mean, everybody caught on to The Matrix, but that's a whole different topic.
So where did you see this? Like, who were you with? Tell me about kind of you said you had like a lot of fun watching this movie as an experience. Like, tell me a little bit more about the surroundings about watching this movie.
Oh man, so it's actually funny, and I don't know if I should say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Like, I actually got snuck into a theater to watch it.
Oh, nice.
Because it's a rated R movie. It's gonna have a lot of blood and fun things. But my brother figured it out, and once he figured it out, man, like we were there, and like it was just a whole moment. I remember having this giant tub of popcorn, man, and I love my Dr. Pepper, so I had my Dr. Pepper in my one hand, and my candy in my left hand.
You had all the whole meal,
dude. My cavities were burning that day. I'm be honest. But after all that, man, I was just able to sit down and enjoy things, and I was like, I was the only kid in the theater, man. I felt like I was the only kid in the theater. That could have been wrong though. But the fact that I was in there and I had so much fun, and I got told to be quiet so many times from my brother because I was just so ecstatic, man. Like I was just having so much fun. There's like blood slashing across the screen. There's like there's the first fight scene where like she pulls up on Vivica Fox, and she's like, like when her daughter comes home from school and there's like glass and blood all over the place.
Come on, bitch. Come on. Bring it on.
Mommy, I'm home.
Hey, baby. How was school?
So that was entertaining to me because the opening scene like that, man. Well, it wasn't the opening, but like the second scene afterwards, it was just so legit, man. And like I remember that best memory of my life right now.
Wow. So as you continued to watch, I guess, movies that had this kind of visual appeal, whether it and despite who makes it background wise, were you always kind of like sharing movie experiences with your brother and vice versa?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because me and my brother, he was like a father figure to me. I didn't really have a father figure in my life for a long time. So my brother, him being 9 years older than me, he kind of took care of me and kind of guided me to do things that he was doing, like my first video game was, Batman on Sega Genesis, but he had that. So I was like the first time I ever got introduced into it. My first like long-term movie I ever remember watching ever was The Lion King, but it probably was some different stuff before then, but I went from The Lion King to a very dark and gritty side, which was Akira Kurosawa's films. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, The Lion King gets dark.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And, that's what's funny to me is that I went from from that stuff to like crazy samurai films and Seven Samurai, that's just my thing. That's kind of what I grew up on. And I'm telling all my friends even to this day, bro, I'm like, dude, if you haven't seen these, I'll sit down and watch these 3-hour films with you again. You know what I mean? Because it just, they speak to me so well. And the reason why I wanted to get into film, why I started doing production in the first place. And that, I don't know, just production to me has just been crazy because I have such a high outlook on things and I want things to come out the way I want them to come out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to put limits on things. I think we should have fun the best way we can. If we can't be done, it's fine, but at least we tried. You know what I mean? And that's kind of spoken to a huge thing, even with even my production company, was that everybody that I work with, or I tell people that kind of come in and help me out, like, dude, just the sky is the limit, dude. You know what I mean? Like, have so much fun. Try an idea. If we don't like it, it doesn't turn out well, scrap it. We always have other takes we can use. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why, even just my brother's a huge influence to me for film, because he always thought that way too. Our imaginations to this day, are just mind blowing. He calls me all the time. He's like, "Hey, have you seen this? Hey, have you played this?" Because I'm a huge gamer as well, and that's why my creativity kind of speaks to that in my video making as well. So just I give that all to him, 100%.
So how has this movie, do you think, inspired you? Either as on the professional side, or hell, even the personal side?
Man, so as far as this movie, man, I think just creatively it's inspired me to always just be looking for the next step up and always keep my creativity to where it needs to be. Because like I just think this Kill Bill is just crazy, dude, as far as just creativity and like just the bloody gore and like all this stuff is like, but you don't have to always be so like grounded with everything. That's kind of what's inspired me. And like I'd say personally, man, like just we know it's a revenge story, but like I don't really take revenge as a thing. I think that it's something that you should just move on from. And I believe that no matter what you do to try to get back at somebody, it's always going to come back to haunt you. That's something that I learned from this movie 100%, is that there's a reason there's a volume 2. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't believe that that's something that we should take into account. I do love the fact that it's in movie form, but I believe as human beings, as people, that revenge is not the answer. And that we should always take into account to forgive others and realize people are sometimes confused. You know what I mean? So I'm really big on that. And that's what personally inspired me to do the right thing pretty much all my life.
So what do you think, though? What is it about revenge stories that like interests moviegoers so much?
Well, I think subconsciously we're trained to have, I'm going to get back at you. We're subconsciously trained that way. Like we've all had somebody do something wrong by us every once in a while. It happens, you know what I mean? Life and people do things, but I think what it is that sometimes also that it's as intriguing as it is, you know, sometimes people they love seeing kind of the action and sometimes the negative outlook on things. Not all the time, but sometimes people like watching movies like that are very like, I'm going to go get this guy and I'll stop at nothing to do it. You know what I mean? But usually at the end of those movies, we know that sometimes either the main character may finish the job, but it didn't fulfill them, you know? Which is why I think that it's a huge thing to not live like that, you know, because it's never fulfilling. And I think revenge is, I feel as a moviegoer, you should watch all the revenge stories you want, have a great time and laugh and learn from them. But I think as a person, as an individual, you should just keep it out of your mind.
That woman deserves her revenge. And we deserve to die.
She must suffer to her last breath.
How did you find me?
I'm the man.
So going back, it seems to me that what you're loving about this movie, movies like this, and even the stuff that you're working on, you're kind of prioritizing fun at the forefront of it. So how do you implement that strategy, I guess, when you're working on something with a team?
Well, definitely a lot of that comes from just humor and comedy, right? So like if let's say if Argent's shooting a commercial production, right? Mm-hmm. But it feels very stiff and very very unrealistic, right? I believe that comedy is a huge thing that can kind of bring everything to life and have everybody on set have a good time. And I think that's something that Kill Bill does. Kill Bill has this comedy too, you know what I mean? It's got some funny stuff. And I believe that's kind of what keeps us around long, is the comedy aspect of things. And that's what keeps people intrigued. Like even with my team at Argent, we had to figure out how to have fun just by laughing or incorporating funny stuff, like even in like these crazy corporate videos. Because sometimes you realize you're so stuck in the work all the time and you're not realizing what's going on around you. You're not in the moment. You're just like, man, I'm just ready to go home. I'm ready to get paid and I'm ready to go home. But you kind of can't live like that. You know, you got to have fun somewhere. So I think that comedy is like the main way to bring fun on to what I do and to what others do as well.
So speaking of, I guess, funny moments, comedy moments, what's the funniest moment you think in Kill Bill Volume 1?
I think as far as the funniest moment in Kill Bill Volume 1, I'm gonna honestly say, it's when she's at she walks into like there's like a dinner that all the higher ups and lieutenants are having, like the Asian dinner, and Lucy Liu gets up and runs across the table, and she like slashes this guy. And like she lets these people know what's up.
As your leader,
皆様のリーダーとして
I encourage you from time to time, and always in a respectful manner, to question my logic. If you're unconvinced a particular plan of action I've decided is the wisest, tell me so. But allow me to convince you, and I promise you right here and now, no subject will ever be taboo. Except, of course, the subject that was just under discussion.
ただ今問題になったことは除きますが
The price you pay for bringing up either my Chinese or American heritage as a negative is, I collect your fucking head. Just like this fucker here.
このファック野郎と同じようにね
Now, if any of you sons of bitches got anything else to say, now's the fucking time!
So I thought Lucy Liu did a fantastic performance on that, and I think that's probably like my favorite part of the movie.
So you mentioned earlier you have an admiration for Quentin Tarantino in his films. So where does this one stack in his
dozen, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna. It's people are gonna hate me for this, but I gotta put it number one. And then I can give it the whole thing, but I mean, Kill Bill, Django is right underneath that, just because Django is so much fun and so much cultural, like just as crazy. Reservoir Dogs immediately after that, and then I have Pulp Fiction. I have actually Pulp Fiction up here on my wall. So those are like my top four from him. But I mean, he's made masterpieces, man. That sometimes he's not even like made them, but he's assisted on them, and they've been so dope. Like from Dusk Till Dawn and things like that. He's had a good time. You know what I mean? And I think that like his creativity just is limitless, and I watch him all the time because anytime I feel like my creativity is dwindling, I go and plug in with him. You know what I mean? Because he just kind of opens my eyes to everything.
Hey folks, thank y'all so much for listening today. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please consider becoming a patron of the Film Nuts podcast and myself. You'll get access to behind the scenes goodies, advanced releases of episodes, and you'll become a part of the Nut House, our Discord community, where we do weekly watch-alongs, spitball topics and films to cover, and just generally have a good time chatting. There's absolutely no pressure to join, but you would be helping this little show grow and improve, and I would be eternally grateful for your support. You can also subscribe to the Film Nuts podcast on your platform of choice, and if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review so we know how we're doing. That also helps us get noticed by more awesome listeners like yourself. Okay, enough of the self-promotional rambling. Back to the good stuff. So where does this, I guess, philosophy of the creativity and not being afraid to unground yourself in your work, where does that come from for you?
So, just a little bit of background on me is that I've always kind of been creatively blocked at some point because I've always felt like as a kid, man, like I always wanted to do things. I always wanted to, jump off of swing sets and like climb the highest buildings and climb the highest towers. But I've always been told no. And I think being told no so many times, and now in my adulthood, man, I'm like, I'm not taking no for an answer. You know what I mean? I think that's where my creativity kind of shines at now, because like even when we go through strategy with RJ, you know what I mean? I'm very, I know what needs to be done also, but I also want to throw my twist on it as well. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like everybody else. I feel like it's, I bring a lot of unique character to what I do and to the people around me. And I think that's kind of what made me get into that mode so hard, that I won't take no as an answer, because I feel like I bring so much value when I'm having the most fun. So that's the reason why 100% that creativity is like not being stopped is a huge thing for me, because I've always been creatively blocked.
And you said earlier that your family kind of backed you up with that too, like as far as like really leaning into that.
Absolutely. I mean, even my mother. My mother's very creative. She's a nurse, right? But she's very like, she's probably 50, 60 years old at this time, but she dresses like she's 19. She's very open, and she's very bright with all these colors and this cool like demeanor and this crazy apparel that young people would never expect a 60-year-old to wear. You know what I mean? So, and even to my brother, man, we all played sports growing up, but he was very like so in tune with, even when he wasn't playing sports, he was playing video games. He wanted to create video games, and like, so I think that like, even during that phase as a child, man, just seeing them go all out on their dreams made me want to go all out on mine. So that's kind of, I'm still there to this day. Like there's nothing that can stop me, I feel like.
No, I'm just super curious because this is like, you know, a lot of times an individual's parents will influence them in a way that, like in a positive way, like continuing something that they did. And sometimes it inspires them to do the opposite. So I can see like you got all this positive reinforcement with the creativity. Do you think that your mom or even your older brother too, like, do you think they got that from someone previous?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I don't believe they did. I believe that they're kind of like me, where they were always told to not do something. You know what I mean? Because, you know, not to be funny, my grandmother and my grandfather were very just, you know, basic people. They worked their jobs and they retired and they had the, you know, they had the 401ks and Roth accounts. You know how it is.
Adult things.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Stuff I don't, you know.
Yeah.
But
The boring
so, like,
stuff.
yeah. So, like, and I get that, you know what I mean? But I feel like and they always wanted to strive better for, you know, for their children. And I think my mother, even my brother, you know, they feel like they have something to prove. Like they, you know, there's kind of like a generational curse, I feel like, to where they want to just get everybody to an insanely high level of thinking and frequency. And I think that that's something I'm very grateful for that I've had in my life, is that my brother and my mother have very high frequencies. And they're very go-getter type people, which has inspired me to do the same exact thing. You know what I mean? So like my thing is just always being able to kind of just feed the masses with fun stuff. Dude, I'll show up to a party, man, or like a networking event, and I'm just like, I'm everywhere, dude. People love me because I just bring so much high frequency to the building. And I learned that from just my family. My family's my dad, even like when I did meet him and spend some time with him, he was very high frequency too. You know what I mean? He was a go-getter. He played bass. You know what I mean? Like he loved music, and like so like that's you see kind of my creativity is coming from. Yeah, is my family's always been very into that and very into like the hustler mentality. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And that's kind of where I got that from.
So, what parts of this film would you think best personify that, like the overabundance of the creativity?
Overabundance. Wow. I
say that not in a bad way. I'm saying it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I think he had I can honestly say I can't speak for him, but I think for the most fun, he probably had the most fun where there's a scene where there's so much going on, and Uma Thurman's character ends up having like this crazy sword fight with like all these individuals in like this lobby area.
Is that what I think it is?
You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you?
You know, for a second there? Yeah, I kind of did.
Silly rabbit. Tricks are for kids.
And they jump up and it switches to a scene where you can like see them like on this, it's like a yellow background, but they're silhouetted. And she's like slashing and like all this blood's going all over the place. I think that's where he probably, honestly, I feel like that's where the overabundance came from. And I wish I had that abundance of creativity because I want to use that in damn near everything I work on, but it's okay. But I think that like that speaks to me the most. It's like I'm sure he had so much fun doing all that.
Yeah, a lot of times it's that kind of like the shifting of the perspective. Like, okay, sword fight with a bunch of people. We've seen sword fights with a bunch of people. How do we make it different?
Right.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from that. So, this is just super interesting because, like, I will go ahead and admit I'm not like a big Quentin Tarantino guy. I don't dislike anything he does. I'm just not in the club. I'm not in the fan club. But I'm curious to know. You admire his creativity. We talked about that. You admire how much fun it feels like that, like putting together his films. What can you say anything else about what this style of film, like how this style of film appeals to you on a filmmaking level?
Oh, for sure. The coordination and teamwork. Like there's no way that he can pull any of this stuff off if people didn't believe in him and believe in his vision. Right. So if he didn't have the people to work on this stuff with him, there's no way this stuff would have been possible. Right. Because some people show up and they're like, hey, man, I just don't think that could be possible. We should just scrap that and cut that scene and go to the next one. But I think having a team that legitimately believed in him is like what inspires me, and just as a leader, you know what I mean? Like, because like I ask about what kind of energy I give off to my teammates, and my teammates tell me all the time, do whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Because it's like I don't intend to be that type of guy to where I don't listen to others, because I listen to people all the time and they dictate what I do 99% of the time. And I think but there's that one thing where it's like, dude, I know this is right. We got to have this. And I think that Quentin Tarantino is just, leadership and camaraderie is what brought him to that next level. And that's what I look up to. Like, I've watched behind the scenes of him thousands of times. Just his leadership and camaraderie with everybody on set is so next level. And I think that's what speaks to me the most out of everything. The creativity and the fun is dope, but just the way he leads a team is what I'm interested in the most.
Have you ever been in a situation where you have had, let's say, a bad leadership experience? Not when you're the leader, but when you're someone who's a member of the team and you've had a bad relationship or a bad experience with someone in charge.
What's funny? I just got off one of those type of things. Honestly.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't the worst, but I do believe that it could have been done a lot better if people of experience were listened to, because there was times where we had people who experienced on set, 8 to 10 years of film experience that have done this stuff. But this individual wasn't really, I could say she wasn't really grounded and understood kind of the filmmaking process. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong, if your directorial debut and you're just trying to learn. And that's all right. I never have a problem with that. But I do believe that listening to people that are very highly skilled in this area would prevent that from happening. So I actually just dealt with that. So I'm glad you asked that question.
So when you're in that situation, do you find a way to speak up at all? Or are you one of those, like, I'm just going to keep my head down until the job's over? Like, what kind of person are you when you're that individual not in charge during a bad experience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel right if I don't say something. Like, I'm never going to be the guy to be like a complete asshole and be like, dude, you got to stop what you're doing. But I'm more the guy that just have a bit of legitimate talk in private and be like, hey, just be careful. Your team's just kind of here to help you. Just ask questions, because I know this is your first or second time doing this. Ask questions. And we're here to help you out because we want you to succeed in the end, and we want everybody's job to be easy. So no, I have to say something just for my conscience and for everybody else's as well.
That's great. So I want to propose a question to you, and if you have if you want to think about it for a little bit, you can.
Sure.
I'm curious, with all the things you emphasize about filmmaking and all the passion, it is evident in how you're talking that you love this. You got Kill Bill as your favorite movie of all time. You got Akira Kurosawa as one of your favorite directors of all time, obviously along with Quentin Tarantino that we're talking about. If you had to pick 5 films to convey the style and passion of Tray Biddle, what would they be?
Got you, dude. I don't even need time to think about this. Definitely Ron by Akira Kurosawa is next level stuff. Kill Bill, of course. The Matrix is next level stuff. As far as scale and just pure look and just the way it looks, Arrival by Denis Villeneuve. So that's lovely.
Great film.
And then Prisoners by also Denis Villeneuve.
Oh,
just by the drama and just the acting and the way things are and just the suspense. So those are my top 5 that I would say that define me. And so it's funny you asked that, because it's like, that's so easy for me.
That's a really good mix. Like, that's a solid mix, man. And all of those are really top tier.
Yeah.
Okay, so for people who haven't seen Kill Bill Volume 1, why should they see it?
You should see it because I said so. No, I'm just kidding. But you should totally see it just due to the creativity, man. Just the balls to the wall feeling. If you ever felt like a film has been limited, or there's always been censoring, especially now. There's a lot of censoring. People are only making films that are like very like they never go that top tier. But I think that Kill Bill is something that's always going to be loved as just this balls to the wall and very gritty and raw film. And I believe that it's going to speak to everybody's like action, because everybody loves action, you know what I mean? But it also has that thrill of suspense and that thrill of, just storytelling as well. So I believe that Kill Bill is just damn near the perfect storytelling masterpiece.
Wow. That's good. That's bold. I like it.
Yeah.
Have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Not yet. And I've heard that it's one of a top-notch film.
Based on what you have told me, it might replace something in your top 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. Great to hear. Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah, it's just immense. I mean, yeah, at the time this episode comes out, whenever this is, you may have seen it and it might change.
Yeah,
but
I'll watch it. I promise. Yeah, I'll watch it like today, actually.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, dude, thanks so much for talking with me about this movie. This has been really cool because I want to admit, like I said earlier, I'm not in the Quentin Tarantino fan club.
Right.
So this was the first time I had seen this film. So it's definitely like, I'd seen clips just because it's a film that kind of this is one of those films that once it's out, it just permeates things.
Absolutely.
Like people will see clips or images, or they'll get references, or they'll understand what the movie is, even if they haven't even seen it.
Right.
And so,
exactly.
Actually, before we head out, one more question for you.
Sure.
How do you think a film like this is able to do that? Is able to just kind of permeate the cultural consciousness, for lack of a better term, even when people haven't even seen what they're referencing?
It's funny, man, but I think in today's social media age, the memes for one, but it just without social media being a thing, performance from everybody is just so stunning. And just the crazy visuals are like the main two things. I'd say performance and visuals are the main two things that make everybody very intrigued of what's going on. You know what I mean? They're like, yo, why is there silhouettes and blood everywhere, and like the top of somebody's lady's head is off, and like what the heck is this? You know what I mean? So like I think when people see different type of like screenshots and stills from this, they're like, yo, I've got to see this, because it's like look at the actors that they have. There's great performances, and look at the crazy visuals and just the way he makes things look, man. Like I think those are the main two things that stick out and make this film such a long lasting film.
And do you foresee yourself possibly having some kind of making something along the lines of all the films you've mentioned? Do you see yourself
Absolutely.
making something like that and having the messages that have been handed down to you as far as embracing things that people tell you no to? Do you hope to pass that down with the stuff that you make?
1000%. Yeah. And I think that time's coming actually sooner than later, So like, I think that, within the next 5 years, I'm going to have something that's going to be available to everyone. And I want everybody's feedback on whether how terrible it is or how great it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a very controversial but a very fun Asian culture samurai film, because I want people to understand how well the culture is done. And I'm going to bring in professionals that are going to make sure that this culture is correct and the way everything's portrayed on screen is correct. I don't care if it takes me 6 years to make it, but it's going to be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's going to be done the right way. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I do foresee that in the very upcoming future.
Well, I'm going to hold you to that because I'm excited. I'm excited.
For sure.
Based off your excitement, I'm excited. So awesome. Well, thanks again, man. This has been so great. Thank you again for talking with me.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor.
I don't know about y'all, but I really love Trey's outlook on the sky being the limit. Even if you're on the slightly pessimistic side, you have to recognize the value in not always staying so grounded. Working in show business or not, I don't think it hurts to have our head in the clouds every once in a while. I guess creativity is like heat. It rises. So grab a hold of it when you can, from wherever you can, and please don't let go. Sincerest thanks to Trey for coming on the show. And if I had to measure my thanks to you in buckets of blood, it would be this entire movie. Y'all should really go check out Trey's work. I'll put links to it in the show notes. If you liked what you heard today, please go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our episodes. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review to help us reach more awesome folks like yourself. And if you are really enjoying what you're listening to, please consider supporting the show on Patreon. Your monthly support would mean the world to me, and you get cool stuff in return. For more info on that, you can check out the link in the show notes as well. Our theme this season is brought to us by theDeeepEnd, and the Film Nuts podcast is hosted and produced by me, Taylor D. Adams. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email hello@filmnutspodcast.com or tweet @filmnutspodcast. So thank you all again so much for listening. Now go have some fun out there.